I am Dr. Hyacinth McKee, LCSW Bax from Slidell, Louisiana, serving as chair of the Supervision Committee. We also have a member in the audience from the public. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, thank you, Gina Rossi, Baton Rouge social worker.
All right, we have Ms. Gina Rossi with us, Baton Rouge social worker. Okay, y'all. With that being said, I'm going to read the expectations of the board meeting, which is listed on the agenda. So registration in advance for this webinar is required, and that can be found on the LABSWE website under board meeting and agendas. If you're unable to attend the meeting but wish to make a public comment, you can email your comment to Emily D'Angelo at edangelo@labswe.org. The email must be received by close of business a day prior to the meeting and pertain to an item on the agenda. I did make a mistake and missed that after you register for your, to attend the Zoom meeting, you will receive a confirmation email containing information about joining the webinar. The public comment period will be permitted for each agenda item requiring a vote. Members of the public who wish to provide public comment may use the raise hand function to be recognized by the chair. Any one person may provide public comment only once per agenda item. Public comments are limited to 2 minutes per speaker. Public comments are limited to the item being considered by the committee. The chair may disregard or terminate any public comment that does not comply with this paragraph. Attendees of the meeting can obtain general education hours. An email regarding continuing education credit will be sent within 30 days following the meeting. So with that being said, everyone, the copy of the agenda is in front of you. At this time, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda, or if there's any corrections that need to be made, please feel free to do so with your motion.
Move to accept the agenda.
It's been moved by Edgar to accept the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Angela. Any public comment pertaining to the agenda?
No public comment.
Hearing no public comment, any objections or abstentions to this motion? Hearing none, motion carried, agenda is adopted as it is written. With that being said, we did do the introduction of everyone here, and thank you so much for your time and commitment to serve on the Supervision Committee. I'm looking out the window and all of a sudden the sky decided to open up. All of a sudden, and you all are here in this rain, volunteering your time because you have a commitment to our profession and a commitment to our public. And so again, thank you so much. The purpose of this Supervision Committee is charged to review the entire Chapter 5 of our rules. And only because there's been a lot of changes that we all know that's happened nationally, global pandemic and everything else. And then also just there are just different rules that we need to really look at to make sure that we are kind of keeping up with the times, right? And keeping up with other jurisdictions. And so the charge of the committee is to review the entire Chapter 5. With that being said, the review of Chapter 5 and correspondence was submitted to you. So at this time, I just want to give you a layout of what we are trying to do as a board as we are moving into proposed rules promulgation. During the strategic planning meeting in July, the board discussed 3 ways in order to work collectively as a board. We talked about research, collaboration, and inform. Research, collaboration, and inform. With that being said, when you start talking about proposing any rules or making any changes to rules or policies, the board at the strategic planning felt very strongly that that's the way we should do it. That's the process we should do it. And so right now, the Supervision Committee has been charged to research information, then work collaboratively, and then move in the direction of informing the public. If you look at the Chapter 5 that was sent to you, Chapter 5. And first of all, y'all know it's a lot. You see it's a lot of, there was a lot of work, right? And so there was a lot of pre-work that we were able to do. So the chapter 5 document starts with the minimum supervision requirements. It talks about the LMSW who pursues the LCSW credential. It also goes into 503 for LMSW seeking the LCSW credential. And then it goes down to 505, the LMSWs that are not receiving back supervision, or the CSW, not eligible for back supervision. Then we have 507, which basically has the board-approved clinical supervisor responsibilities. And then it ends, okay? And so that's the entire chapter 5 as it stands, as it is written in the rules right now, today, okay? Since the last supervision committee meeting, which you all received that agenda that took place, I believe, November 20, somewhere along those lines, November 20. There has been some dialogue about the supervision process, and also correspondences received from the public about supervision. In addition to complaints, I don't like to say the C word, but in addition to complaints that have been received by the board that involve the supervision relationship, right? And with that being said, since that time, the board felt it very important to do the entire chapter. So what we'll do right now is have some dialogue about the review of chapter 5. So I'm going to ask that everyone open up the 507 that was sent to you. And at 507, it's got the little red lines. Let's see. It's going to say fax 30, October 2023. Y'all see that? It's titled Fax 30, October 2023. Okay.
Yes, you said it's 503 up now.
It says 503 at the top, but it's titled as that. Okay. So before you, those are changes that were made by the Rules Committee as it relates to supervision. Okay, so you see that, it says 503 LMSW seeking the LCSW credential. And then if you scroll down, you see like some green lines, you see the corrections, you see that, y'all? All right, so you see that like the M and there, okay. So the Rules Committee met during this October, at this October meeting and times before, and this is their final draft of changes that they made to 503 and 507 of chapter 5. You see that? Now, it might be easier for you to, take a look-see on your computer, because then you can see it in color. So what I want to tell you is, the good news is that the Rules Committee had already started the work of reviewing chapter 5. So we're not starting like from scratch in some areas, okay? And so if you would notice, a lot of the changes took place under 503. I'm not going to 503H yet. We'll get to that in a minute, because I know that's a really, hot topic. But if you look under 503 after J, you can start seeing things were omitted. Right? And that's from the Rules Committee and some dialogue that the Rules Committee had around this chapter. With that being said, this has not been approved by the board yet. This is still in committee discussion, conversation, redacting, adding, whatever we need to do. It's the final draft has not been approved by the board. And so this is where you're going to really need the Supervision Committee to do a good bit of its work. I'm going to ask that the Supervision Committee really look at these proposed changes the way we see it now, and dissect, take your time and look at it, and let's come up with if there's any changes that need to be made, any recommendations that need to be made. Now, we do not have to clearly do this right now in this second, because I know sometimes you have to kind of step away, read it, and then come back. But I am asking that we work expeditiously on, making this a priority, on our agenda to really review, okay? Was hoping that you were able to do some pre-work before the meeting. So we could just take a moment and just kind of gloss over it, like kind of gloss, like speed read. And if anything just kind of stands out, then, you know, we can make, identify that right now. Now, I will say, as you're kind of looking, so I'll just kind of help with this as we kind of pushing through. It looks like it's been a significant amount of recommendations in, 507. Do you see that on the board approved clinical supervisor? And I think, y'all, that ties to the supervisor's responsibilities piece, right? And what the recommendations are that a back supervisor should follow, okay? There was some dialogue, some really active dialogue about the way this is written. But again, I think that we can take some time to look at this work and see if anything that is glaring out that you believe might need some changes.
So I said,
Yeah, absolutely. Barbara.
So, I'm not seeing it specifically here, but I'm wondering if this is a consideration people would think is, with the new form online, with the certain new form, it basically outlines, so we don't have to do that daunting thing, right?
Yes.
But I do think it's important that we have a specific plan with our supervisees, what are the goals of the supervisee, but also, that we cover those things. But, I have a lot of people come to me because they want to learn trauma, they want to learn these specific modalities. That there's input about the plan from this other piece of it that you can do through case study, or you can do a didactic sessions on it. I know it's not mandatory, but I just think in terms of a supervisee relationship, just as you were talking to the retired supervisors, that there is so much to learn from clinical experience. And if a supervisee is interested in a specific thing, that, it doesn't have to be covered in here, but that it should be a consideration in the process, if that makes sense.
Like a preliminary, like interview to see if your needs are gonna meet what I'm looking for, and is that what you're trying to say?
And what are your goals? It says specifically what we need to do, but then, a way to work those goals into the process, because it's a lot of hours we're with them, and
Learning assessment
yeah,
could be a way to.
Yeah.
To.
I don't want to create more work, but I just think, I just think it's really important that as a group, we always standardly have that conversation with our supervisees about, what are your interests? What do you think kind of like a mentoring piece that we end up doing anyway. So I don't want to make more work, but I just think it's an intentional conversation.
Yeah. Would that be, Parker, somewhere in the supervision contract? Like, would that be 507A1A? You see where it says to honor the commitment to supervise responsibly, which includes covering content as indicated in the supervision contract? Would that be something? And I will say that, we have some awesome BACS trainers in front of me. I'm looking around the room, all y'all have done it. And to your point, Parker, to drive it home though, that it needs to be really uniformed and emphasized and placed somewhere. I'm wondering
It could be on the Certami, because on the Certami, it says, you're gonna do all of these things when you're accepting the plan. In the Certami form, it says you check off all those things,
Mhm.
and then there.
Attestation, an attestation is what you're saying,
Around that
attestation.
attestation, that could be
Attestation for-
dialogue
Mm.
about
The
goals.
yes.
Would that be the attestation for supervisor and supervisee, Parker? Like both individuals attest?
Yeah, I don't wanna make more work, but
I
I just.
understand, but we're
it's an
building a
intentional
platform.
Culture.
We're getting a new platform,
Yeah.
right? And so this is the time to start saying, okay, what can we think about? So if that's something, and I see Steph nodding her head, because Sarah works really closely with that's her piece. She does a lot of the supervisor stuff. So if that's something to consider as we build a new platform, yes, we welcome it.
I think it's an integral part of
So attestation.
mentoring young social workers is, keeping them, there's
The supervisory.
there's a period where there's, it feels like kind of purgatory to them. And so there's this period where you want to infuse with, okay, let's start thinking about what you want to know outside of this, like how you want to develop yourself and pull some of that in and really have a substantial mentoring.
Okay, all right, noted.
I
Duly
think
noted.
I'm gonna agree with it, but I'll tell you, I do that with all of my supervisors.
Too,
And it needs to be uniform, so we can be held accountable as backs as well, that, hey, we mentored this supervisee, so when they're completed with supervision, they have an idea of where they wanna go.
Right, and that's the point is, I'm sure
Like a road
most
map.
people do it. It's just a cultural attestation that this is part of our role. You know what I mean? That it's visible to everybody.
So I think, to your point, Parker, and to what you're saying, Angela, and I'm hearing an attestation is really what's needed.
Probably.
And I'm hearing that could be, that we should put it in the licensing platform where both parties acknowledge. Is that what I'm hearing? Am I comfortable? Okay, I just wanna, all right, I noted that. Okay, any other on that piece? Okay, thank you for that feedback. All right, if we look through, we're also looking at board-approved clinical supervisor responsibilities has been expanded to maintaining accurate records. Y'all see that? Accurately advise supervisees of the requirements of supervision. However, it doesn't diminish or eliminate the supervisee's duty to know. See how that's been added? And understand the role and responsibilities of the supervisee identified in the rules and law governing supervision.
Where are you, Hyacinth? What page?
I'm on 507A1C, page 3,
Okay.
okay? Accurately advise supervisees of the requirements of supervision. However, it doesn't diminish or eliminate the supervisee's duty. I said that, right? To complete and submit all BAC's designated supervision forms timely. All right, let's go on to the next one. To work cooperatively with supervisees at the beginning of supervision, to arrange supervision sessions mutually convenient to the BACs and the supervisor. Any matters pertaining to that? Okay, y'all stop me when you want me to stop. To remain informed on social work best practices, to assist in the supervisee's professional development. There you go, Parker. And-
You say, professional goals.
There you go, there you go. So you're saying, supervisee's professional development, you want goals to be added to that?
Development and goals.
Okay, so,
I don't want to make it an
no,
overbearing.
this is where we are. Let's see, professional development, and of course, like I said again, we don't, it's still a work in progress. Development and goals. Sarah, you somebody taking notes too on it, cause my notes are very, I'm writing it too, but,
By adding it in that way, it still gives quite a lot of flexibility for both parties in terms of how that looks.
Yeah.
And I like that flexibility.
Yeah. Okay.
you wanna add goals to that, and 5 okay, and F, all right. And G, and to maintain the best interest of the supervisee unless those interests conflict with another duty or responsibility described in this section. Any questions about that? Okay. All right. Number two, BACs have a professional duty to protect the general public by ensuring that unqualified social workers do not attain the LCSW credential. This duty includes, without limitation, to accurately and candidly evaluate each supervisee for fitness to practice. Okay? B, to refuse to recommend or advance a supervisee the BACS deems unfit to practice. Any thoughts about that? Okay. And of course, I wanna say, see that BACS deemed unfit on practice, I wanna say as evidenced by evaluation. Like, I like equity, right? So, y'all know what I'm saying?
Criteria, it's a criteria of
Right.
evaluation. You know,
So let's see about adding something as evidence by evaluation or criteria evaluation. Y'all see where I'm going with this?
yes.
A dialogue about process.
Okay, all right, let me see what you say, Doc, hold on, you're saying dialogue. By process.
I think the criteria piece and then a process for this.
So we have to be clear on what we want to be added. What are we saying for to be after deems unfit to practice, semicolon, by what?
I think we have to specify specific criteria, so it's not, there's one standard, you know what I mean? So that it's not just, I just think this person isn't.
By home.
To your
Can we say
As
as evidence by
evidence.
the evaluation? Can we say as evidence by the supervision evaluation?
Maybe so.
You know, then the evaluation.
What
And I-
y'all thinking? What you thinking, Gina?
The issue here is unfit is not defined.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And listen, we didn't went back and forth with fitness and unfit forever. And our legal counsel, I mean, that fitness stuff is above us, like it's in state law, like it's embedded in the language of the law from an understanding of state law. So state law use fitness to practice or fitness to do it. So we've been back and forth with that. It used to be moral character, and I was like, what, get that out of there, what is that? So,
By the regulations, like something they do in the regulations that they're in front of the board
Yeah.
anyway, you know, like that gives us universal criteria that's not just the whim of some supervisee.
exactly, but do we have to, if that's the case, we have to draft it and create it? Or do we already have the
We have it.
existed?
I think we have it.
Oh, we have it, yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah,
that's what I'm
because
saying.
I think we've got we all know what we can and cannot do as social workers in the regs.
Right, so you're saying as
As
per,
per the guidelines set forth in the
You know, in the regulations and NASW Code of Ethics too.
as per the guidelines set forth in the regulation,
Yeah.
in the Practice Act,
Okay, yeah.
in the Practice Act, because, there we go. That's 2B, that was added, that sounds good, y'all, okay, all right. All right, hold on, I lost my file. Okay, there we go. All right, 2C, to provide accurate and truthful information to the board about each supervisee, including their professional development and any personal circumstances bearing upon the supervisee's fitness to practice, and to report to the board when the supervisee engages in conduct the BACS reasonably believes may violate the law or this part or that calls the supervisee's fitness to practice social work into question. See that furry stuff we talked? So how do we feel about D? That part about, calls the supervisee's fitness to practice and social work into question? Where are we with that language?
I think if we hook it back to the regulations and the Code of Ethics, we're.
I think so. So I'm thinking that if we did 2D and we circle back and we say, to report to the board when the supervisor engages in conduct the BACS reasonably believes may violate the law or this part that calls the supervisor's fitness protection as per the guidelines set forth in the Practice Act, right?
That's
What, yay, nay?
Yes.
Yay.
Okay. Okay, and I think that helps us out a lot.
But the guidelines aren't in the Practice Act, they're in the rules.
I mean, in the rules, sorry,
So
sorry.
you have to say, I
Say-
think you use, I can't never remember if it's chapter or part, but it would be of this as per the chapter or as per the part.
As per the part?
I don't
Would it
know
be
which one is-
chapter,
I don't know
whatever
which one is
part,
the correct
whatever?
one, but you have to refer back to the rules. It's not the practice.
Okay, as per, thank you, Emily.
Would it be the rules in chapter, whatever, part, whatever?
That could be.
Yeah, so we got to find out what part it is and then tie that to
Yeah.
that. Thank you, Emily, for cleaning that up and helping us. We have to find that. Okay, got it. All right, got it. All right. Okay, 2B, a BAC shall not knowingly provide incorrect, incomplete, or misleading information to the board in an effort to circumvent any law or this part. They're good at this part, Emily. So I think that's the, make sure I have to, we'll word that for the last one, the one before that, to say that as well. Counsel any supervisee to practice incorrect, incomplete, or misleading information to the board in an effort to circumvent any law or this part, or maintain a relationship with a supervisee that would violate the Practice Act or Chapter 1 of this part. You see that? That's what she's talking about, how we gotta make sure we put in there.
When they say of this part, how does that, what is that legally reference? What we're reading or of the regs in the chapter?
So it says chapter 1 of this part. So chapter 1 of the rules, standards, and procedures are your standards of practice.
Got it.
And it talks about, what type of
Yeah.
relationship would be an inappropriate relationship
Got
with your supervisee.
Thanks, Emily.
For that. All right, any questions, changes about that section? What we thinking? We good? All right, we moving right along, y'all. All right. C, to qualify for the BACS designation, a social worker must complete all of the following requirements. These requirements must be met before the social worker receives the BACS designation, okay? Hold the LCSW license, verify at least 3 years of full-time social work experience at the LCSW level, submit 2 letters of reference to the board from other professionals, one of whom must be an LCSW, that was the change, who are familiar with the social worker's work, including supervision skills. Complete a board orientation workshop no more than 6 months prior to eligibility under this subsection and no more than 1 year prior to application. Any thoughts about that? We okay with it? What's your thoughts? What we thinking?
Well, I'm curious to see what the thoughts are about the 1 year prior to application.
Yeah, so there was some dialogue about, if I could recall, about individuals not like moving, fast on getting into back supervision. Like, oh, I'm thinking about doing it, but I'm gonna wait 5 years and I'll come back around, I think the dialogue was more about having individuals be more active, in pursuing that BACS designation and following through.
I like it.
You like it? Oh.
A year.
I like
I think it
it
is,
because
yeah.
I'm already seeing with the students, how we're allowing them to apply to take the test before they graduate. I'm already seeing students doing that a lot.
Yeah.
And I like it. I like the proactiveness and we need supervisors.
Mhm.
We need them.
6 months eligibility.
You like the 6 months prior to eligibility? Okay, all right. Any other dialogue about this particular section?
Well, no, this will help, give the staff guidance because people will call, they want to apply, but they took the board orientation workshop 3 years ago. Well, I'm sure a lot has changed.
Yeah.
3 years
That's
ago. So
about
we want them to have current training,
Mm-hmm.
to make sure they're getting the right information.
Once you apply, how long does it usually take?
Applications, that type of application doesn't have to go before the board, So maybe every 2 weeks,
Okay.
we, take a day that we handle those. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so how we feel okay about that? We're feeling okay, all right. So look at C5. Complete a board-approved supervision workshop on the theory and techniques of supervision as well as procedures used in supervision towards licensure. No more than 1 year prior to eligibility under this subsection and 1 year prior to application. What y'all thoughts about that?
Is there a reason that would be different
Yeah,
than,
that's
like,
what I-
why not keep the timelines consistent?
6 months.
Okay, so I'm hearing that dialogue. So what are we saying, Katie, how do we wanna wordsmith? Do we wanna say 6 months and 1 year, keep it consistent?
I think so too.
You think it's consistent? All right, so no more than, so we're gonna keep it it's gonna be 6 months prior to eligibility under this subsection and 1 year prior to application, correct? Okay. So we'll change, and then I haven't, let's see. Thank you, Sarah, I see you over there pecking, please be taking notes, cause I'm telling you, I can't run the meeting and take them. Okay. All right, so it's gonna be 6 months. All right. All right, y'all, D. To maintain the bank's designation in good standing, the social worker must, 1, maintain LCSW licensure. 2, appropriately conduct all supervisory duties described in this chapter. Period. You see that? Boom. All right. Complete 3 clock hours of continuing education and clinical supervision every 2 years. These hours must be approved by an entity approved to provide continuing education under the Practice Act. 1105, this part. The 2-year collection period for clinical supervision training hours and an even number years with the close of the continuing education collection period. Social workers must complete these hours during the 2 years preceding the close of this collection period to be in compliance. Remember all that whole, what year I gotta do it, what year I'm not supposed to do it, what?
That's, yeah.
Doesn't that help?
How do we
Do you
keep it?
think that help? The even years, does it help?
It helps.
Yeah,
I do it
I
every
don't
year. 'cause
I do it
I'm
every
right.
year.
Yeah, that's what I did for a long time.
Everybody does every year, I take ethics every year. I'm in Edgar's workshop. I'm in his workshop, you know I'm there. And so, okay, so even years, y'all see that? That helps out, right?
Yes.
Emily, you have a comment? Yes.
So that's been a recommendation from people for a while. And then when I attended the last IOC meeting, some of the individuals in that meeting were like, no, we want to do it every other year. We don't want to try to remember even number years. So it's like, some people some people that's easier, some people. So
So I would tell everybody, take it in 24.
Right.
Like everybody right now, take it all in 24.
It's a nice
I
little
think-
thing in the newsletter to say, hey, it's 2024, make sure you got your stuff.
Mhm. That's a good way to stay informed and try to, okay, love that recommendation, love that, yeah. Helping us do that, social media, we're trying to get back on doing that too, we are, but I'll take that recommendation, Sarah, you heard it, we put that in the newsletter, okay, thank you. All right, so, all right, let's move, right, y'all, okay. 4, supervise at least 1 supervisee every 3 years, what y'all think about that?
Yes.
That was somebody said yes, somebody shaking with a
I've heard pushback from people
I've heard
who don't want
pushback too a lot.
to do it, but still wanna maintain their backs.
So why do you want to maintain your backs and you're not using them?
Don't ask me, I'm supervising people.
You know, like, I've got 3 all the time, but I'm attached to places where that would happen, you all probably do too. But I have lots of colleagues who are like, well, I wanna supervise when it comes up, but it doesn't come up for me much.
Yeah.
You know, like, no one contacts me.
I've heard that too, cause I've been
You don't
without
wanna
some for
exclude
2
them.
years, cause nobody, not that I don't want to, but, and then 2 came up recently, I took them.
And then people pursue other endeavors. They go back
Yeah.
to school. I know, if I would have had to have a supervisee when I was in law school, would have been impossible.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
My suggestion at one point was, I don't know if this is possible, but put on the board website an asterisk of those who are actively taken or those, so people can know really how many people are available to take,
Yeah.
Okay.
supervisees, because some
Okay.
people won't take them for a year or two or.
Okay, absolutely. That's, and this is just and this is good. This is good recommendations from the supervision committee as we start creating this platform. How can we utilize this platform to best serve our people, right? And so, but it does take staff though to manage that. Now, you gotta keep in mind, you have to have manpower and bodies to go in and say who can, and all of that. So I want to just say that to y'all too as well. But if the platform, and I'm over speaking, Lord Technology Committee, I know y'all watching, please, I love y'all. But if the platform would allow a way where someone can identify that themselves and then it populates,
Yeah.
just thinking about those
Yeah.
kinds of ways as we build this supervision platform. Sarah is writing down.
If we require people to have a supervisee, might this be a deterrence from people attaining the BAS if they're not sure they can do that and fulfill this requirement? My thought would be perhaps there's an extra, educational or something if someone has not had a supervisee in X amount of time.
Like redo the whole orientation. or something.
Right. Like if you have not had a supervisor, we recommend that you have a supervisee every blank, but if you have not, or you cannot, then maybe we have an avenue. Those are just my thoughts.
So I'm hearing that, so what I wanna hear is that are people not wanting for to stay the way it is?
Or maybe not worded just as that, like with a contingency or something to it, cause like another thought I have about that is if somebody's saying, okay, I have to do this to keep my BAS, then does it compromise the integrity of supervision? Cause I'm just taking somebody to supervise so that I can keep that instead of like, this is a good match.
You don't
Right.
have the time or the ability.
I'm
to-
hearing overwhelmingly, but I did hear someone over here say they like.
I guess I'm what you call it, the oddball here, cause.
It's in your shoes.
Eyeball every 6 weeks.
Yeah.
It's okay. A lot of us, we're used to being
Trying
eyeball.
to listen to everybody, but
But-
I was like, yeah.
I'm hearing the consensus is not comfortable with 4. And they really are not one, because they see that it may be a deterrent, for people to pursue the BACs. And so I'm wondering if, these rules are not finalized. So I just need to know if we want to remove that. And if so, do we want to replace 4 with something and reword it? Do we want to say something about professional development?
Yeah, what is
I
like what
think
Gina
so.
said, if you don't take a supervisee in 3 years, you have to go and do the orientation workshop or something.
Or some.
Prior
Something.
to.
Prior to.
Prior
yeah,
to.
taking somebody else.
And Hyacinth, I love your recommendation about maybe some way that the box could check off, because we're really trying to promote now self-care. And anytime somebody calls and says, hey, would you supervise? I usually take them on, and, at some point you're not gonna be as good. And so this just says, hey, if this isn't your year, it kind of makes a culture of you decide,
Yeah,
you know what I mean,
you can put it up to yourself that I'm not taking anybody right
this
now.
year.
Now, let me also throw this out to y'all, just as being thought partners. Some jobs require people to be BACs, but
My
they don't
job does.
necessarily, your job does, huh? But they may not necessarily be utilizing it. Like, but the job requires it,
Yes.
but
For promotional
but in the job description for
Well,
promotion,
no, to be hired as,
a senior.
a senior social worker.
Senior social worker.
You have to have a BAS.
So we gotta keep that in mind too.
Yeah.
So we putting that on, we gotta keep that in mind. So I'm just saying that I don't know too much about 4. I'm just not feeling all the way comfortable about 4. What y'all think? Yes, yay, nay? Okay, all right.
I'm not comfortable.
You're not comfortable, okay. So let's just, so
Go
4,
with majority.
so here we go. Alright, so we're looking at 4 not gonna be there anymore, okay? Alright, so, that is what, 3,
Can I go back to what they're saying?
yeah.
Because we have about
That's D
Can
four.
social workers work with us, who are all backs, have to be backs? And they are not comfortable being, doing supervision. So, because even when I bring up educating, no, I wanna do this, but they want to be a back, so they have to be a back.
And they have to be for that position, for that
position.
senior social worker.
But actually having to perform the duty is
Exactly.
something that they're passionate about.
Exactly.
I think that's an important piece. The supervisor should be passionate
Exactly.
and in a position to be able to provide the service.
Cause I have somebody now whose supervisor is a back, and she won't do it, so I'm doing it. Yeah, so I see what you're saying, it doesn't want to do it.
And I don't know how many of you guys are outside supervisors. I am one, and I really rely heavily on the partnership,
Yeah.
Yeah.
of the internal supervisor.
Definitely.
All right.
Let's pass it.
Well, we think y'all passing the candy. And there's chips and cookies over there. I'm staying away from the cookies. I might get a chip in a minute. Okay. All right, so here we go, y'all. Let's see, all right, E. If the board receives information that a BACS has violated a provision of this section, the board may order the BACS to appear before the board for a hearing to determine whether the BACS may retain their BACS designation. So this turns into more of a discipline piece, you see that? It turns more into like discipline. It's not discipline yet. Let me not say that, strike the record, Lord, but it does have the BACS come before the board, okay? The BACS, any questions about that? Any pause? Okay. The BACS has the burden to prove compliance with this section and may present documentary evidence through affidavits, court records, official records, letters, or other papers or things, along with sworn testimony to establish such compliance. Okay with that?
Instead of things,
Where you at?
where it says other papers or things, could it be documentation?
Yeah, or material,
Or
huh?
materials instead of things?
So y'all see that, take things out. Okay, so that is E1, remove things. E1, remove things. Okay, y'all keep that, all right. 2, if the board finds that the BACS has violated any portion of this section, the board may remove the social worker's BAC designation. The board may also require the social worker to take remedial measures to correct any consequences occasioned by loss of their designation and may impose conditions upon reinstatement of the designation. The board may also permanently bar a social worker from receiving the BACS designation. Any thoughts about that?
I think that's good.
It's very reasonable.
Yes.
Think it's reasonable, committee? You okay with it? All right. 4F, if a social worker loses their BACS or BACS designation for any reason, they must cease supervising all supervisees and must assist those supervisees to find alternate supervision. The board may impose additional penalties if the social worker fails to take reasonable efforts to assist supervisees in securing alternate supervision occasioned by the social worker's loss of the BACS designation. The social worker who loses the BACS designation must also refund any unearned fees to all supervisees. Any dialogue about that?
Do we have a specific procedure for must assist those supervisees to find
No,
alternate supervision?
no, we don't have a procedure on that.
Why would you take their recommendations if they've been sanctioned by the board?
Good point.
I have a problem with that.
Good point. Good point. Because since what Edgar and Gina is saying, if you are not a good supervisor, I don't want you sending me to somebody, I'm not gonna take your resume. It makes sense, but I think the piece is what happens to the LM
Right.
who's in the middle of a situation where their back's designation has been removed. They don't know where to start,
Maybe
like.
the board can
I
guide
was gonna
them
say
or
that.
something to, yeah, like this, hey, this is, look at you, you know, some kind of
Must
recommendation.
refer to the, LABSWE for recommendation, for a supervisor.
Or how do you go
How
about
do you
getting,
obtain
yeah,
this?
procedures to go about finding one, looking on the website, seeing who does, yeah.
I think that we could consider removing that part about the supervisor needs to find you another supervisor, yeah. I believe that should be pulled out, but I don't wanna get into the weeds of the board telling you you need to go, this is a good supervisor for you. I don't want the board to be picking your
Yeah.
supervisor, you pick your own
What
supervisor.
about providing a list?
We provide a list on
Anyway.
anyway,
Or maybe
right?
they go back to the
Right.
regular procedure.
Right, you just go back to the regular
Yeah.
procedure, we
Yeah.
can't pick your supervisor for you, y'all
And
get
and as,
that?
as a social worker period, whether you are SW, LMSW, I would think you would have, common sense enough to go back to the board, you know.
They would have to, it's
Yeah.
unfortunate that they would have
How
to.
you would know how to look for another supervisor. And definitely not depend on,
Yeah, I think
The
this
one-
is more just speaking to like the responsibility of the supervisor in this position to not just be like to at least provide something, they don't have to take it, right, but like to at least try to assist them and especially if you know what their specialties are and what they're trying to do in the field to try to find other supervisors, but
Right. What you think, Paul?
No, I'm laughing inside because this is why I take the box every year I teach it, because I'm like, is this my year? Cause what if that happens?
Right, what?
Something like, maybe the board would reach out to the supervisees to find another supervisor, so that way penalized or lose hours or something. Cause if you're just stuck, all of a sudden your supervisor's lost their.
It's messed up, it really is a bad
That kind of leaves
situation.
you in a bind.
Really does.
You don't want to penalize a supervisor if it's not their fault, so maybe some consideration for them.
So that would have to be something that would have to be written from the ground up.
I think so.
Because to consider, to the damage to the LMSW, it's not their fault.
No penalties for them.
Yeah, so we would need to be able to. Oh,
Because you're looking at them finding out the contract, finding out the supervisor, that's a lot of time, so.
yeah, right.
They could lose a month or
So
two.
maybe something like could be written essentially is what you're saying for like, how would the board consider that, like a process for even something very general that says like the board can, consider the time like not under direct supervision to be approved as supervision hours still,
And I
depending on how, I don't know.
we could put it in that part where it says with the supervisee and a supervisor need to meet within, 2
Mhm.
weeks. We could put it in there and say, unless, this thing happens, and then you've got 2 months while the process regroups.
So I'm here, we need to put some safeguards in for the LMSW.
Yeah.
And so does that go in 4 or does that go on the whole thing we write over? Do y'all want it to go in 4 or does it go on the LMSW
That's what I'm thinking.
responsibility,
goes under
so
the
rights?
responsibility.
Cause I wanna say this, in having the ability to meet with other jurisdictions and having the opportunity to meet with other boards, they are having discussions about LMSW's rights. Like, that's like a real thing.
Yeah.
I know some of your training, sometimes you have a slide or two on the rights, responsibilities, but rights. And I think that this speaks to us either deciding, do we wanna take that on and have that as a section? Or do we wanna add something in 4 to lead us to that section?
I think you add it because, and here's why, because I think you add it where the MSW who's panicking is gonna look. And I
So we
think-
need to do, that needs to be under the section of like responsibilities for LMSW and rights of LMSW,
Yeah.
correct?
Yes.
All right. In the meanwhile, y'all are saying y'all wanna remove this about must assist
And the
supervisees and
reasonable
securing
efforts.
alternate supervision. Okay, y'all see that?
Additional Yeah,
So we are removing must assist.
and what about the following
In the
sentence?
following sentence.
The
too,
board may
yeah.
impose additional penalties if the social worker fails to take reasonable efforts to
We need to
assist.
take that out.
Take that out too.
Yeah.
I mean, you already losing your bags designation.
Yeah.
I mean, what else? I
Yeah.
mean, tar and feather,
Yeah.
come on, right? Let's take that out. Okay, got it. I got you. So we're gonna strike that out. Okay. The social worker who loses the bags designation must also refund any unearned fees to the supervisee. Are we leaving that?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, let's go to G. To reinstate a BACS designation, the social worker must, one, complete 3 hours of continuing education in the area of clinical supervision, complete a board orientation workshop, and complete all conditions required by the board for reinstatement.
I like it.
Y'all like it?
Yeah, that allows in case the board meets and says, well, we need this person to do X, Y, or Z, it allows for that specific guidance.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh my goodness, folks.
And it allows for facts and circumstances, individualized situations, when the board goes through it.
Okay, oh my goodness, folks. So look what just happened. We actually got, and I'm happy that we were able to get that accomplished, on time. I'm not rules committee, but I would entertain a motion to accept all of these corrections made. Moved by Parker. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Edgar. Now I'm gonna open for public comment pertaining to what we just discussed. Any public comment pertaining to this document? There's no hands raised.
Is this document online anywhere for anybody in the public to be able to follow along?
Well, not at this current moment, this document is not, where people can follow along. But I will say that, we can make that available to the public once we have all agreed to the changes. But we will let it go before the full board first. So when it goes before the full board, it will be accessible. Okay? Cause we gotta let the public know what's going on. That's how we roll, so. So if there was no other public comment pertaining to this document, any objections or abstentions? Hearing none, motion carried. All right, so I'm excited to, move forward with this document as it stands to be brought before the full board. Okay, Rules has touched it, we have touched it. I want to give its blessing to go before the full board. That's the intention, okay? All right, thank y'all, super great. Whew, can't believe about that. Now, let's go back to the agenda and try to follow. All right, so now let's go right to the next item on the agenda where we will talk about telesupervision, okay? And just kind of go right into where we are as a board and trying to work with telesupervision. Some of the pre-work that you received via email included correspondences that received from the board, not every single correspondence. Why, Hyacinth, why you didn't send me all them correspondence? Number one, they are made public for every board meeting, so the correspondences are already published, and they've already been made public. Two, there's too many of them. So if you wanna see them, go on the website and see them, okay? These are a binder of correspondences that we have received. Emily, has this been since I've been chair? Or is this some before this, you think? I think it's only since I've been chair, maybe a couple, so maybe about a year. What you think? to, she's like, I can't, what you talking about, Willis? But these are corresponding,
Even before you.
probably even before, thank you, Emily, of just everything related to supervision. Not just ask a virtual, but just so correspond. So I have it here as the binder, all right. Also, in terms of telesupervision, in your pre-work, you received some research. A professor actually did some research and did a publication in the NESW Fall Winter 2023 newsletter regarding telesupervision. I'm proud to announce that that professor is a Louisiana professor. Hello. Okay, that professor is a double doctorate. Y'all see it? Dr. Patrice Centino, I'm giving a shout out, double doctorate, associate professor from Louisiana. Did some research, right, on telesupervision, higher education, ethical standards, response to COVID. And I don't know if you had an opportunity to read the information that she provided, but I want to be able for us to really hone in on the practitioner key points. I thought was put together very nicely, ethical considerations as well. And then she also talked about higher education programs as well and clinical higher education programs. But she did specifically keen in on giving us some practitioner key points and some ethical considerations. And so thank you, Dr. Centino, for your work on this. In saying that, we also have in saying that, we have that as some research done by a Louisiana professor. We also have information that's been provided by the public, a public member, on some research that the BACS group done some research on telesupervision and what they have been able to find nationwide as it relates to telesupervision and what states have telesupervision and what states did not, and what jurisdictions. We also have correspondence received from Tracy Lilly. I don't know if any of you all know Tracy. Tracy does this roadmap where she goes around throughout the state and she does trainings with all the BACs. She's been doing that for many years. And in her trainings, she basically, I want to say, it looked like she conducted a somewhat like a survey she does at the end of her trainings just to kind of gauge the climate. And she provided some recommendations based on her experience doing her roadmap. Some of her recommendations actually included hybrid telesupervision as well. So she had a proposal for hybrid and also a proposal for 100%. So she provided some information as well. We also have significant amount of data and research that was provided to us by the Association of Social Work Boards as it relates to clinical supervision and telesupervision that they have been working on this since 21. And they have been able to, they look at it as jurisdiction. So you may see Guam in there, they look at it as all jurisdictions that's tied to ASWB. They've been able to provide very detailed work. And I think it's because maybe they have the body and the manpower to do it, right? That basically outlined what different jurisdictions had telesupervision, what jurisdictions actually had rules on it. So you got to keep in mind, people haven't quite caught up yet. There are states that like, oh, we doing that now? I guess so. And they're trying to catch up. Oh, we probably need to get something on our books. And so when we see stuff like no board approval for telesupervision, because they haven't caught up yet. They haven't really started to say, okay, do we really need, and then some really are actually doing, like they actually, have no parameters in it. But then we also have states that, 16 jurisdictions that have telesupervision, and they have parameters around it. They have certain guidelines around it and what that would look like for their state. So just keeping in mind the data that we have in front of us.
And you know, there's this other piece too, is, LPC, if you take the LPC regs in the state and in general, and ours, they require the same standards, but they speak them differently. We speak them very generally, and I teach telemental health 10 hours free for our community, our social work community, so we can raise the standards, you know, because practicing supervision is also practicing social work. And so by your license, you need to understand what the practice standards are and the release forms are and all the stuff that is really important to know and do as a baseline. And so we just need to make sure that, you know, I think supervision hybrid would be great. But I think that everybody needs to be trained in that somehow, or read up on it or whatever it is, because it's just important to be confident. You know, just because you're doing supervision doesn't mean you're not held to the requirement as a social worker doing telehealth.
Thank you, Parker. Any other comments to tie in what Parker is saying, as it relates to that? And to your point, Parker, there are states out there, and looking at the research, all of the research, rather, there are 16 states out there that have parameters around what telesupervision looks like for their state.
I think it has to be in there.
And it is no board approval, but it's indirect board approval in that you need to follow what the rules are and the guidelines set forth by the board. So no, you don't need to come to me and say, can I do this? You need to follow what we have in place for you in order to do that. So, so I think it's important for us to recognize that as well.
And one of the key points in the article was that most supervisors had transitioned without proper training, and then it went on to talk about the technology process touches on legal, ethical, professional standards
Exactly.
and the requirements for all of this.
I get 300 social workers a year in this free class that I teach, because I teach it for free and I've researched all the stuff. And, you know, there are things you need to consider that you might not consider. It's not hard. It's just that you need to do it and not just show up and pick up the Zoom and, you know, because what happens if your supervisee has a problem online? You know, what happens? What are you gonna do? There are procedures, there are generally standard procedures that NASW, and in this state, we're lucky also to have the LPCs have them very specifically written, which are the standards, national standards for doing it. And so it's more than just getting on the Zoom, you know?
It is more than just getting on the Zoom. Also, in your pre-work, I sent you the link to NASW, standards on telemental health. And I sent you that link to that too as well. Did y'all get that in the link? Okay. So just for us to have this information as we decide to start drafting said rules, right? Where was I? Thank you for that. And then also it has in there in the pre-work, for us to really look at the requirements of supervisors, right? When we start talking about supervisors' responsibilities and LMSW rights, we have that information in there for us to look at as well. I will say, you know, oftentimes Louisiana always gets targeted by people say, Louisiana's always the last, They're always the last, And I'm like, but you live here. This your state. Ain't my in-law state, cause she live in Virginia, but you live here. This your state. So when you say Louisiana's the last, you saying you last. And so, but I want to say in Louisiana's defense, as I look through the research, Louisiana, in this particular instance, they actually have a rule that's promulgated that addresses distance remote supervision. It may not be the one that, we can agree to disagree on, right? But there's one there. And so it allows us an opportunity to launch, right, from not having to start from scratch, and we can jump from there and then add and do what we need to do. And so in this instance, I'm actually defending Louisiana. Can you believe that? And that I didn't write 503H. Hyacinth didn't do that. I give that to credit to the board before me of having the foresight and that supervision committee went before to have something in place. All right, so with that being said, let's talk about the difference between virtual, distance, and remote. So I'm in academia, and I'm surrounded by people that are in academia too as well. And academia, there are different types of learning modalities, if that's the word, or learning platforms or abilities, if you will, for your scholars, your students. Some people attend programs that are asynchronous, virtual learning experiences. Some people attend university offers synchronous, which is live, interactive, distance, remote learning. There's a difference between virtual learning and remote distance learning. So why was there a pause? Because you cannot ask the board to promulgate a rule to allow for virtual learning for clinical supervision. So my academia, the people that are in academia know exactly what I'm saying. Virtual supervision is independent, basically at your pace, doing the work, doing when you want to do, submit, possibly take a test or an exam at the end to test your knowledge. It is not interactive. It is not synchronous. That's virtual. So to ask the board to promulgate a rule to allow anyone the authority to have virtual supervision is totally against what we do in our profession in terms of educating our future social workers to be effective clinical practitioners. Any questions about that?
That was so well defined.
Okay, I'm hoping that I was able to define that well, because I think that it's important for people to know the information and not make leaps and assumptions, right? Yes, ma'am.
Right now, I totally agree, like, I think we all agree with that. Right now, just in terms of confusion in the social workers reading those words, right? How are we wording it in their continuing education piece? If we could get some standardization between those two places.
Yes, ma'am. So right now, Parker, good point. So right now, our proposed rules in the 23 that we've been, me and Emily going on a far vacation away from everybody. On the 23 that we have up for proposed, that we have in the legal sufficiency, that's where we are.
Yeah.
We have clearly defined proposed rules on continuing education as it relates to asynchronous and synchronous. We have gone so far to allow asynchronous at 10 hours and synchronous at 10 hours. That's your 20. You see that? So EGA people gonna be signing up.
I know.
Okay.
Because what I keep hearing, I run CLM at Tulane, they're like,
Yes.
Parker, you gotta get everything live now. I'm like, I'm gonna give you some live, but I don't have to have it.
So right now, Parker, until that rule goes through, and we're praying that that one goes through. Right now, we're at our 10 You know, our 10 online and our 10 in person.
Yeah.
Okay, so just but hopefully we'll be able to have asynchronous, synchronous, all online with 10 asynchronous, 10 synchronous. That's the prayer, okay? So I wanted to help put that information out there to dispel the talk about giving anybody the authority to allow virtual supervision. We can't, we won't be doing it as a board. But what we can do is be mindful of our language and understand what distance education is and remote education is, and work towards creating what that will be the best for the supervision relationship and process. That's what we can do and work towards. That's what our charge is. So with that being said, in terms of telesupervision, we are going to pretty much have to go to 503H, which is there, which allows for individuals at this time right now to submit their request to the board, to continue remote supervision, remote distance, and the rule says remote. It doesn't say virtual. To continue remote supervision based on extenuating circumstances. So it could be distance to travel, hardship. That's what's in front of us right now with 503H. We have gotten, oh my goodness, how many stand on? I'm trying to see. I gotta count the number. So we keep record of who submits what. So I'm gonna read some data for y'all, okay? At the June meeting, we had 16 requests. 3 were denied, 13 were approved. This is to continue remote supervision under 503H, okay? In July of 2023, we had 13 requests, 9 were denied. 1, we needed a little bit more information, 22 was approved. So I hope somebody can do some statistical, give me some percentages on that, just because I didn't do the percentage part. In August of 2023, we had 22 requests, 4 were denied, 18 were approved. In September 15th of 2023, we had 8 requests, 4 were denied, 4 were approved. In October 2023, we had 6 requests.
I say it's diminishing.
And 6 were approved. In December last month, because we didn't meet in November, we actually got a chance to be with our families and eat some turkey and stuff. In December, we had 7 requests, 4 were approved, 1 was denied, and 2 we needed more information. So all in all, we had 91 requests submitted, 21 were denied, 67 were granted, and 3 requested additional information. And that is what we have under the existing rule right now under 503H. As it relates to
Over 60% were approved.
over 60% when submitted were approved. Some we had to ask for extra information. Right?
And do we know how many people are under like supervision?
Yeah.
And I knew that question was gonna come up. I looked over at my people over here, because we talk about that all the time.
Right now, I can't pull a report.
We can't pull it, we got a platform. But y'all know that's I said with the retired social workers, it was such a blessing to be there and speak to them. I said, if I say sir to me 3 times, well, I say bingo. And so I said sir to me, and I said bingo, and they laughed. Sir to me. So hopefully, and I don't want to overstep, my team is over here. Hopefully our platform would allow us to do that. Like when you identify that you're a BATS, you're identifying that you're supervising, hopefully we can pull a report and they'll say, okay, how many we got? That is like the dream, the vision, to be able to just press the button and pull it out.
Even even when, insert me right now, even when you've completed supervision, that person stays on your screen. So I'm over reported by like, I have 3 right now, and I think there's 6 on my screen. That I did the report, you know.
And you're
it's
done, yeah, and it's still,
It's
yeah.
still there.
See, so you see, there's some things that we are trying to work, and see that kind of stuff, so Parker and team, y'all hear kinks like that, you need to write it down. You supervision committee, you need to be like, guess what I heard? You know what I mean? We need to work this, cause we're not gonna remember it. So something like that, write it. So we can remember. That needs to be changed when we start talking about changes to the licensing platform, because by grace, we'll be able to, as we have a this new platform, we can offer some stuff, right, when we build a supervision piece, okay?
Are we,
Yep.
are we looking at, like changing H to maybe like a certain percentage to be remote? It doesn't have to be overburdening the board, to be approving all of these things.
So number one, a couple of things, yes and yes, right? The board doesn't, I can't speak for big on the light, no, we didn't say that. It's kind of word, language. Y'all seen my board, y'all know we got, right? Okay, let me see how I'm gonna say it. We are here to serve the public, so this feeling of being overburdened is not, I don't think any board member carries that. Like, if it comes in front of us, this is our responsibility, we charged to do it. So I don't think that anybody on the board feels overburdened. I mean, we work a good bit, we tired and all that, and shook and hun, complain and whatever, but we are charged to serve. So if it comes before us, we are charged to review it. So I don't know about that overburden part, but I will say, given what we're doing now, this is why we're here as a committee, to start formulating a rule that will work best for Louisiana. In saying that, Edgar, the Rules Committee, a couple of committees back, one of the Rules Committee members, bless their heart, they took 503H and went away and like tried to work on it, and then they came back with some stuff, and it was like, you know what I mean? Like, it was like, no, that isn't what extenuating, my extenuating, you know, so it turned into be, oh my goodness, even and a courageous set of people to even come back with that. And I don't think I have it in front of me, Emily. Oh, was it Donna on our rules committee that took that and tried to take a stab at trying to reword it? Bless her heart. And I don't think I've seen her at a meeting since then. Love you, Donna. But it's hard, right? When you put yourself out there and you're trying to do the best, So saying that to say that, yes, we need to have dialogue on wording or creating a rule, not just 503H, but something that's clear, that identifies if we have parameters and safeguards, that's what we're charged with doing, part of chapter 5. Okay.
Makes sense.
Y'all got anything y'all wanna say? I've been talking a lot. Okay. All right, I covered telesupervision, and then we're gonna start talking about assignments, all right? What time, what we have at the clock, I told you we're gonna end on time. All right, so that covers, I hope I was able to cover telesupervision and where we are, okay? And then we'll, all right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, Eddie, so.
I just need to ask, like, okay, let's say like when we start looking at all of this stuff, would it be appropriate to say, to define situation, like saying anybody who has to travel over 80 miles or 100 miles, like putting some parameters into those guidelines?
That is if we continue to utilize 503H in the way it is.
Okay, but we can revamp that whole,
Because we are looking at all of chapter 5.
okay.
Right?
And with that travel piece, kind of to your point, what if it's, years ago, we had one specific case where it was somebody was somewhere else for 3 months.
There's a lot,
Yeah.
yeah.
Travel social work is very popular.
Yeah.
So, I mean, is it that, like, as opposed to the whole thing? What is it?
And so y'all, I'm telling you, this is not like, you need to go and change this. Like, we really have to be together, not always agreeing, but working collaboratively to come up with this the right way. Angela, you gonna say something? Say something to everybody?
Angela,
All right,
I'm
moving
good.
No, I mean, bring the,
Yeah.
listen, bring the questions up, like, I mean, oh my goodness.
Okay.
So any other questions about telesupervision and like, I just wanna let you know where we were, okay? Right, so now let's go to supervisees' rights and responsibilities. We touched on a little bit of that when we just went through these additions and changes, right? And someone in the crowd said something about professional development of backs and continued that, and there's been some dialogue. Are backs supposed to, like, we do the every even year of our refresher,
Right.
but, are we needing to do more than a refresher? If we promulgate a rule about telesupervision, should we add a component in there about telesupervision, telehealth, teletherapy, how to do with a HIPAA platform and all of these things? And then also tying into that licensing platform, when we get that new platform, really teaching people how to use the platform is a component. I'm jumping around a little bit. But with that being said, we look like we've already on a good point of supervisor responsibilities with what we just did. We have to now focus our efforts on the supervisees' rights and responsibilities. So what I hear is, well, the supervisee should know too. Like, this is a bi-directional thing that's happening here. And so our task would be to go and look at the rules that align with LMSW responsibilities and then craft those as well to put stuff in there. Y'all get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yes.
And I keep looking at Edgar, y'all, not intentionally, but I know his workshop talks about, cause I sit through it, talks about supervisees responsibilities. You have a piece on that. You have like a slide or two that you talked about that. And I'm leaning into you because I think you can add that information, like, some of that. And then we do the research as well.
Sure.
But I know there's a piece on that. All right, so we gotta look at that. All right, last but not least, licensing platform, right? So where we are is we have this ability to create this supervision platform to put all this stuff, well, we can't go over $100,000, so don't be coming in with the printout and they could all this live, we can't, the budget is 100,000, that's it, and we at 99,999 or 8. But we have this beautiful opportunity to build this supervision platform to insert the needs, right, of our licensees in them. And so we need to also work with our technology committee. So like when you came in with those little things, a test station, boom, Sarah wrote that down, check off this, Sarah's writing that down. So when it's time to have a conversation with our tech committee and with our new people, we could say we want to add that. So be thinking about things. Our supervisors, people who are supervising and y'all working with CertiMe, y'all using CertiMe, be thinking about things in that, is it user friendly, is it not? What works, what doesn't work? Not work, Parker shake it. Put it, give that stuff to a I'm not trying to get people, oh, well, you email, but I know where you're at and I know who you're at. Go to supervision committee member and say, look, y'all, I think this might be, and let them bring that back to us as well, okay? All right, so that license plan. Okay, so now we're at, any questions before I get to task and assignment? Any questions? Did I do okay with where we are?
So when you do your research and you do your brainstorming, think about the different pieces that are required to fill out, like employment verification affidavit, your contract, your evaluation, your professional experience. And just think, are all these still important to have? I know the history of why we have them. But as things change, do we need to just keep having every single form because we've always had every single? You know, it may be time to revamp that as well.
Yeah.
And I think we should take this opportunity, to examine that. And you might end up saying, no, we need all of these. They all serve a good purpose and we need to keep them, and that's fine. But I just want you guys to think about it.
Cause this is a beauty, this is like a beauty moment, y'all, that we have this opportunity to just, and again, I toot the staff's horn a lot. I do believe, and y'all know, positive reinforcement works a long way. Somebody work for you 2 pennies on the dollar. If you tell them how good they are, you know, a doggone well, you only paying them 2 pennies on the dollar. But positive reinforcement, the staff really, they sit down and they think about these things. They come to us and they say, y'all, this may work, this may work. And so please do exactly what Emily is saying. Take this time to kind of go, all right, do we still need that? There's some hardline people that go say, no, you still need to keep that employment verification form. But should the job sign off on that form and the supervisor? Do we need 2 signatures? Is that a barrier to process, or, just different things like that? Can that just be one So those are the kinds of things we're looking at when we start talking about.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Angela.
I was gonna say, I wanna really talk about that part, because I have someone who I'm supervising who actually works with me. However, he had to go through all these loops and holes to get
HR.
well, not really HR, the mental health chief, and the mental health chief was refusing because he was in an employment role at that time, but he was providing social work direct practice with the veterans that he was working with. And in her mind, but he's not a social worker, he is a social worker, but his job title doesn't say social worker, but he is a social worker. And it went through all these different hoops, and it took so long for them to finally approve. He had to go to get his license in Texas for them to approve that supervision as in the workplace. And so I'm going to agree with that extra step. That is, sometimes it can be cumbersome because of the people who you work with who refuse to acknowledge you as a social worker, even though you're a social worker, but because you're not
Job.
per se under their job.
I was gonna, echo pretty much what you were saying. I had ran into a similar situation where the person had difficulty getting that done. It kind of delayed us. But I was gonna also ask Emily, if you have any recommendations or things that you've seen of the staff, that seem to be good to have that background of y'all opinion too, because it will help us the historical significance of some of that.
Absolutely. We need that, and, definitely, thank you, Edgar, for saying that as well. I mean, certainly we need what Emily is saying, her staff, what Sarah's saying. Sarah is working with supervision. That's her responsibility as licensed analyst. That's why she is here. She does a lot of work with the supervision process. And so having them two, really help us, their input as well. And Regina and, everybody else in the office too, everybody interface. And so we need to have that information.
And I do want to say thank y'all, because he did call down to the board and give his job description, and you all agreed he was providing social work, but they still didn't take that.
Wow. Wow.
So, but thank y'all for that.
So there you go, right? And so again, to Emily's point, looking at, do we still need stuff just because we always had it? Looking at that as well. Okay, so any questions about anything else? I wanna say, that we also need to look at, it's a lot of work, so I'm gonna shut up. We also need to look at when we offer our board orientation workshops and when we offer our workshops to BACs, making sure that we infuse whatever rules that Louisiana promulgates somewhere in that training. I'm not taking old people training, but we need to inform people what we're doing in our state. I get people all the time say, well, we get people, I didn't know that we had to turn in a contract within 60 days. And I'm thinking, oh gosh, then my mom thinking, how did that not how was that? I know in our orientation workshop, it says you have to turn a contract within 60 days. I know that that's what it says. I know that's what it says. I know that's what it says.
Yeah.
You know, and so, but some people may not have that, you know, so those are things that, and what we don't want, we want when people do have to come before the board, that they are armed and informed of what they need as well. Because you know what's gonna happen? The board is gonna say, well, rule such and such, so-and-so says, da, 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 da. And it doesn't mean that Hyacinth doesn't like you, because I'm the only Hyacinth I know. I mean, I knew one other one, so. It's not that because Hyacinth don't like you, it's because we're a regulatory body and we can only operate within that rule.
Yeah. And you know, that brings a point that when I was looking at the requirements for every 2 hours, for every 2 years, have that board backs 3 hours of backs training.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I've been to some in the past that had nothing, you wanted just really a backs training.
Right.
And what Shelley does them with me now, Shelley Weaver, and she's good about bringing the certainty, you know, the stuff that needs to be
Bingo.
done, which people need to refresh us sometimes, especially if they hadn't taken a supervisor in a while. It's kind of like, this helps us. So maybe some guidelines as to what needs to be included in that.
I mean, I think a supervision committee can not simply, oh God, right there from the record.
Nothing simple.
But we can have something to say that trainings, board orientation training or
Yeah.
board trainings that are approved by the board will have information pertaining to
Yeah.
Louisiana's rules, you know, and we can have that in, you know, so people will know. I'm not talking about the every 3, you know, the ones that we do, the refresher, because sometimes people take those online
Yeah.
from other places maybe. But somewhere people need to be informed of what's happening now in Louisiana.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Cause our complaints, that's how they come. I didn't know, and what they say, ignorance is no excuse for not knowing the law or something like that. So, you know, so we didn't know, it's like, why, we have to follow the rule, you know, and this is what the steps are, so. Any questions or comments while we're talking?
One more thing, and y'all, I hate to throw the can of worms in, but
No, it's
I'm
okay.
gonna say it again. So LPCs require their people to have 10 hours of training. They outline what they are in telehealth, because especially, I think, this is a little bit of conjecture why, but some of the people who are first getting out are taking these telehealth jobs and have not been trained. So what do you do if somebody dissociates? What do you do? Like, how do you set up to make sure the room, you've got control? But all these things, they are evidence-based practice. And in our social work way of looking at it, it says, be trained in best practices. And so somebody reads that and they're like, well, I know what that is. Well, you think you know until your first client dissociates. And what is your procedure you already have in place? And what is your procedure for a suicidal ideation across the state? You think you know. But so I'm wondering if we, at some point, add that to the competency level for, you know, some kind of training, like because yes, not everybody's going to do telehealth, but it is more and more sort of a normalized thing. And I just think it's something to think about, especially because our younger social workers are taking a lot of these jobs. And the one, you know, I've done supervision with my folks, and I'm an outside supervisor. I'm like, do they do this prior to the meeting? Do you have, especially with kids, where you know, if there's abuse involved, you got to know what's in the house, who's in the house, is there a weapon in the house? You know, you got to know all this stuff. And I just think we need to think about that. I'm not saying right now, put it in there, but I just think it's really important. The LPCs are already doing it for all their folks. You need to know this, and this very specifically.
Are you saying as part of the supervision?
For
like,
everybody.
Or just? okay.
So Parker position, you're saying just in terms of professional development, Parker, like overall? You're talking about continuing education professional, I'm sorry, continuing education
I
overall?
mean, overall, but definitely, you know, the young social workers are taking these jobs where they're seeing a lot of clients online. I don't even, you know, I say the young, you know, I don't know how many, but I know, because I know a lot of our students, many, you know, not half of them, but a third of them. I mean, so much so that I'm advocating that we put, you know, 4 more hours in this training I do and make our students take it. Because it is a thing, and I'll tell you, I was so happy I knew what the procedures were I had a dissociation online. And before that, I mean, I knew what to do, and before that, I had the mother on call on her cell phone before the beginning of the session, and I knew where she was, and I knew where my client was in the house. And when it happened, I had the procedure in place, right? Most of the time, it's fine, but you know, you're working with kids, there's a lot of HIPAA issues, like in New Orleans, we've got all these shotguns. And I was working with people in the schools, right? And in the shotgun houses that we were talking about these kids, people are walking through, you know, people are in the kitchen, they think it's part of the deal, and there's an education piece with the client that's protocol before you have the session. And who are the helpers in the room if you're working with, you know, some kind of kid that needs, you know, some structure in the room while you're on. There's all this stuff you gotta know.
Right, and so to your point, it's bigger than supervision, it's teletherapy as a whole. In your pre-work, in that that's the one I need to send y'all. I sent you pre-work, but it came into PDF. It actually is supposed to be a spreadsheet. There are 2 tabs. One tab talks about telesupervision, and the other one talks about jurisdictions on teletherapy.
Yeah.
So you'll get an opportunity to look at that and see what other jurisdictions are doing as it relates to their rules around teletherapy. I'm gonna email you that in Excel. You got it in PDF accident, okay? And so that'll help so we can see what other people are doing too.
Yeah.
If, you know, when we get to that. That's a whole nother committee though.
Right, I was gonna say, that's more.
But the telesupervision, it's still, we're charged with that,
Yeah.
right? And so it doesn't mean we can't start, you know, working on that.
If somebody is telesupervising, they're doing it, and so.
Right. And you can't automatically assume just because, cause I see people through telehealth, that I know how to do this too as well, you know, there's education around that. Go
There
ahead,
could be
Gina.
a situation where the supervisor is providing the services to a social worker who is doing telehealth. And maybe that supervisor is not providing telehealth services.
That's a great.
Right, it could be a supervisor that's not in that specialization area or have that area expertise. See, all of that ties in, and so,
You need safety plans,
Yes.
you need all these things before you even have the session. And people just go into these sessions, I feel like sometimes, and, you know, I've seen it with my supervisees where I'm like, wait, bring me the policies they have. And there's like nothing, and they're in there and, you know, so.
What I want, you're going beyond just supervision, you're going.
yeah, she's in telehealth.
Yeah, so I will say, because I've actually, been part of some of those agencies, contracted with them, and provided the education on telemental health.
Yeah.
And it is required by Office of Behavior Health. But I know that's outside of what we're doing, talking about, we're talking about supervision, but I understand what you are saying. But some of those agencies, even though it's required by Office of Behavior Health, the education and the training, they were not doing it.
Right.
So they were just.
And I was supervising somebody who was in a room with no confidentiality, not using earphones and the thing online and you know, there's a lot around it. And we can't just pretend like, I mean, I know Hyacinth, we know you guys have so much on your plate, but I'm just saying.
No, I mean, that sounds like, no, Parker, no, I mean, you, Angela, I mean, everybody around here shaking their head, nodding with you, they agree with you. That is something that we are gonna have to talk more about, particularly when we start talking about interstate compact. Y'all, all of that, what she's saying ties into everything that what we are doing. And, so no, to acknowledge and validate, no, that's, yeah, I know that's part of the exam, but to acknowledge and validate what you're saying, we do need to have a bigger conversation about teletherapy, as well. Cause it does tie into what we're doing as telesupervision, so, yeah, that may be another committee. Really, real talk, that might be another committee to consider doing as well. Y'all got any other stuff about what we talked about, and then we can go into task and assignment to the homework part, anybody, we good? All right, so since everything we talked about today, I was hoping that we can get, people to work, independently, but kind of like in pairs, but no more than two, because if it's more than two, we gotta have some sunlight involved, okay? So if you all are working independently and then with each other, like in teams, to go back and tackle different areas, and then we'll circle back together, right? It's not algebra, it's not nothing, it's not like, oh, I didn't do my homework, tis. I mean, people have lives, they do the best that they can. But what we wanna do is just kind of break them into like little sub people and like see who could do what, right? And see who's comfortable with what. Now, I could just be like assigning people, but I don't wanna do that. I want people to be able to feel comfortable with what they think that they can contribute and wanna add, and then we all work together collectively. And so I'm looking over at it. I'm looking at it, I looked at it. Which one you think? I said earlier, kind of sort of which one I thought maybe that you could kind of take on, but
Which one you think?
I'm thinking you could go right in with supervisees, right?
Okay.
I mean, your workshop includes that. It just does. And so if you feel comfortable with, looking at what our LMSWs are required, what we have in that section, and then expanding it upon how to ensure that they have rights. And when I say rights, I say in terms of, being able to have a voice in the supervision process. People gonna be mad, but I'm about to say the thing. We have managed to allow the conflict theory to overly immerse itself in our profession. We have managed to hierarchy our profession. We have managed to level people. We have managed to say, I got mine, you get yours. In social work. And we know we have people out here that need help. And so, and I'm going on record to say that the market will show you what they want. Keep it up here. So we have to work collaboratively to work in the best interest of our public. So I'm saying that to say, if you could tackle that supervisee rights, if you will, that'd be super great. If anyone wants to work with Edgar on that, speak now, forever hold your peace. LMSW supervisee's rights. Like, think back when you were a supervisee. I wasn't an LM, I was a G. G.
I was a G.
I was a G. Get it right. So I didn't take the LMSW exam, right? So when somebody comes telling me about all the challenges of the LMSW exam, as much empathy I can convey, I didn't have to take it, right? I took the LC. So, if you think back when you were a supervisee, what you needed to have from your supervisor, flexibility. I can't imagine, my supervisees call me 8:30, 8:45 at night. Guess what happened to me? When that happened to you, at 4 o'clock? Why are you calling me at 8:45? Are you serious? But they don't know. They figure I'll just tell her later on, or I don't wanna bother her. Being a flexible supervisor, being available, being there for your supervisee. What you need to know in the first 60 days. What does my contract look like? Those kinds of things, your rights as an LMSW supervisee. And I know you had a couple of slides on that, so hope you do that. All right. Speak now, it won't hold your peace. Edgar's leading that. Okay, I'm looking over at Gina. Gina, which one you think is gonna be? Tell the truth. Which one you think?
I will happily do whatever you think is best.
I'm taking supervisor responsibilities. Oh my goodness. That's
I
not-
figured
You figured that?
I knew it was.
Uh-huh. And because, you know, Gina serves as our board consultant too, y'all. Y'all remember Gina used to read everybody contracts and send it back with the little cute curly comments. And I used to be like, so sick of her. I can't wait till I meet her.
That was like a senior project.
It really was. We would send it to Gina and I would be like, oh my God, Gina, please don't come back with corrections. She was like, and then I'll, it's okay, but you gotta fix it before.
Yeah. She's my friend.
Oh my God. So Gina, if you could look at supervisor responsibilities and then also we need to have a dialogue about how do we reinstitute that contract in a way that we, you know, the process works for both. I've had supervisees say, well, I'm getting evaluated. Why I can't evaluate my supervisor?
I agree. I agree.
I'm telling you what nationwide, it was going on in terms of you evaluate me, but I've come to your office, you always 10 minutes late. You calling me on the call saying not this evening. I'm just telling, I'm not blaming anybody. This is not every back supervisor. My goodness, it's not. This is not every back supervisor. It's not LMSW. I'm telling you what we are hearing doesn't make it factual right, but the supervisors evaluate the supervisee, but the supervisee is saying, well, I'm not being evaluated. I'm not having an opportunity to evaluate. So leading into that, we may institute it, we may not institute it. I mean, whatever, but it's okay to have a conversation about it and let's discuss it. So Gina, take the lead on that if you will. Speak now, Beverly, please, that's Gina. Parker. Parker, can you look into that, continuing education components and requirements as it relates to what other states require supervisors to have in terms, in order to be a supervisor and hold their designation and all that good stuff around it?
You want credit hours and.
Credit hours, what they have to take, what the course is in. What state was that they had a specific, you have to take this, and this, and so many hours. They were like, really, I was like, oh, Louisiana's not gonna be happy if we do that.
Yeah.
But just kind of looking at and seeing what requirements,
Sure.
supervisors, please do that in terms of continued education.
Texas does it.
Texas doesn't have very.
Yes.
All right, and then telesupervision. I'm not gonna put that on y'all. I'm gonna take it too. I'm gonna need help with it. Need help with it. But I don't want, okay, Katie Brown. Katie Brown is taking telesupervision too with me. She's gonna work with me on telesupervision. I appreciate that, Katie, putting yourself out there like that. Now, check your tires. Check your tires on the call. See, I got a sense of humor, huh? Y'all didn't know that. But thank you for taking that as a huge charge. And thank you for taking it. Angela, okay, you get the pick. You wanna do licensing platform?
It doesn't matter.
How you feel about, just kind of, you know, seeing what you think we can put on our licensing platform, you know, like to make our licensing platform supervision user-friendly. Like what would a supervisor, attestation, Parker had mentioned, what forms we need to have? Like, you know, should we still have the same forms or not have those same forms? I know our notes go in Certime, bingo. Do we want a platform where notes are continuing upload? Should it be in real time? Should it be PDF scan upload? Those kinds of things. Emily and her staff, Sarah, they may have really good ideas, but whatever you produce and bring to us will be great for us to work as a team. Did I miss a task and responsibility? Did I cover? I think I covered everything.
I have a question for clarification. So, on the agenda, it talks about supervisee rights and responsibilities. So is Edgar gonna cover rights and responsibilities?
He gonna cover rights and responsibilities.
Yes, I will.
So Edgar, please do that as well. And of course, whatever you all, we bring together, we're gonna work together on. It's just people are going out right now researching what they're coming up, what they could find, okay? So we got that. Sarah, I didn't write down who was supposed to do what, did you?
I wrote it down.
Oh, thank you, Emily. I didn't write it down. I just was going around. All right, so now y'all, guess what we at?
Meeting time.
3:21, we done so good. All right, future meeting dates. So what we're not gonna do is meet 2 weeks from now. That's not gonna happen. I would like for us to talk about meeting in the new year. I can't do it in December, y'all. I can't. So I just, y'all can't either. Some people out of the country. All right, so let's talk about when we wanna do it. Now, we could do it around board meeting, but I think I need to see what the other committees, what the other committees have and what they doing.
You can shoot us something if you want.
We gonna confirm at least the next one,
Okay.
right here, right, since we got everybody, right? We'll just, and then we can go from there, right?
Okay.
I don't need like a whole calendar of dates. I don't need that. But, so do y'all wanna work in January or do y'all wanna do February? And if we do February, Mardi Gras is around. So I'm just telling you.
I have one conflict, which is the week of the 8th through the 14th. I will be out of country on a 2-lane project.
That's January. So,
And I'm out the 25th to February 1st.
okay, and that's February.
That's
Emily, when is our February board meeting? Anybody knows when it is? I need to write down all my board meetings.
I have it on my calendar, which I did not bring it in
I
here.
know January, our board
It's
meeting
on
is-
our website. Let me.
So let's pull it up on the website. Shame on me to be.
February
I am-
might be best.
You want it to be after
February
the
be
board
best.
meeting, is that what you're saying?
Well, we usually, it can be, well, our work is not gonna be done for the board. I mean, it's not gonna be done for the board to full approval. I mean, you know, we could very well bring some of the work that we talked today, when we talked about, I said, I wanna push that in front of the board.
It's March 8th, we don't have one in February.
Okay, so yeah, I could push that in front of the board, but
February
they may,
24th.
huh?
Regina said February 24th.
What? We have a board meeting February 24th?
No, not on the website.
Not on the website. I think they got rid of February because of Mardi Gras. People were saying that. But it doesn't mean that we can't meet as a supervision committee. But we gotta have one sooner than March. I'm not pushing us off to March now. I love y'all, but,
Which day is Mardi?
let's do February. Mardi Gras is February 13th.
13th, okay.
So can we do February at sometime in February, folks?
The 23rd,
What day is that?
Friday.
That's a good date for
Something
me.
is on the 24th. What's
Works
on
for
the
me.
20? Oh, that's a wedding. Yeah, I could do the 23rd. That's a Friday. Are we okay with February 23rd? And we can do it at 1 o'clock. Y'all okay with that?
Sure.
I try to get people out by 3:30 because it's bad news traffic, they tell me. You gotta go that way. So February 23rd at 1 o'clock.
Okay.
All right, so when we come back, and in the meanwhile, you get emails back and forth from us. And we'll just work together. If anybody needs help, like if they say like, man, this is too much for me to do, I need to call on a committee member to help, just let me know, because we have one committee member that's not here today. And so she's listening, bless her heart. She may be able to jump on a team to help support a team that maybe, you know, somebody may have too much to do. Okay, so Angela, you gotta go into our Certainly platform and look at everything, like, go through it. Okay, and if you have any questions on what forms we use right now, like if you like, well, what forms are you using right now? Sarah right there.
I'm familiar.
You feel okay? All right, I'm just saying, Sarah's right there. Okay, my dear colleagues,
Yeah.
I am with gratitude thanking you for coming today in this weather and being here and taking on this charge of the supervision committee. I'm so happy to see this happening. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. We are here to work with each other. And I think that's all I have to say. Emily, you got anything else you want to say?
No.
Y'all know Sarah, y'all met Sarah?
Nice to
Hi.
meet you.
That's all you're gonna get. See, that's it now. I'm gonna just tell you, you're gonna get that wave and that's where it in at. That's where she is. All right, that's Sarah. All right, folks. Well, with that, I am going to call for the meeting to be adjourned at 3:26 PM. I don't need a second when it's adjourned. Y'all know that. Unless somebody's trying to stay. Thank y'all so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoyed it. All right, bye everyone out there in Zoom land. All right.
You go to the room, so person left, upload this.
No.